Hello, Intro Psych students, and welcome to Unit 8 of this Introduction to Psychology class. Guess what? We're in the last unit. I'm almost as excited as you are that we are almost done with this PSY 101 course. So let me tell you what we're doing this unit. We're doing chapters 15 and 16 in your free textbook. This includes psychological disorders as well as therapy. Most of you have probably thought that's what we were going to be covering the whole semester, but no, there's a lot more to psychology than just crazy people. If you want to learn about this in depth, PIMA offers a class called Abnormal Psychology. You can take that. So this unit, you are required to take your last set of self-tests. Make sure you do that quickly as soon as possible so that you can write your final paper. You will have to take the exam, the Unit 8 exam, and you will have to decide on your final paper what you want to write. You have two options for your final paper. You can write the self-discovery paper, which I highly recommend, and that means that you have to go over all the results of your 20 self-tests that you've been taking all semester, think about what you've learned so far, and then incorporate it into a thoughtful, concise paper of at least 750 words about who you are as a person. The instructions for this, by the way, are all given in great detail in the syllabus and also in the Unit 8 folder. So make sure you look at that and read it carefully before you just write the paper off the top of your head, because I guarantee you might not do it correctly. The other option, if you want option 2, is you can write a research paper. If you don't feel like confessing or thinking about yourself too much, then you can write a research paper and also follow the directions in the syllabus and in the folder marked Unit 8 for this class. You will also, by the way, if you do that, need to cite your sources in correct APA style. There are instructions on how to do that, but you can also contact a research librarian. The instructions are on D2L, but I suggest you get started on this because this is going to take a lot of work, and that's why it's called the final paper. There is no final exam, so I suggest you get moving on this. Finally, the other thing you can do is an optional course evaluation. That's also in the Unit 8 folder. If you want to try to get some extra credit points, you can answer that. And both of those, I think, are due the last day of the semester. So make sure you start working on it. Okay, so for your Unit 8 exam, let's talk about Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is about psychological disorders. You need to know all the psychological disorders that are discussed in your textbook. So we have anxiety disorders, we have major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, which is a combination of depression and elation. We have drug abuse, we have psychotic disorders, we have OCD, which stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. If you know somebody who's very, very neat or who has rituals that he or she has to complete, that's probably OCD. Phobias are another form of psychological disorders. Psychotic disorders, one of them is schizophrenia, which means that there are disturbances in thought, feeling, and behavior. A lot of these diseases were not understood until the 1900s, and of course they existed for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years in the Middle Ages, and probably long before that. Most people thought that those with psychological disorders were possessed by demons or by the devil. And so they would literally sometimes they would drill holes in people's skulls and to try to get the devil or the demon to leave. And we know this because we have paintings of people getting this done to them. And also we have skulls that are still survive that have holes drilled into them. So fortunately, we've come a long way since then. What else? ADHD is another disorder, by the way, that many of you may be familiar with. All of these are discussed in your textbook, and they are classified under the DSM, which stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. This is published every so often by the American Psychiatric Association, and it's kind of the Bible of psychological disorders. So you need to know what that is and learn about the categories. Finally, we're talking about therapy this week. So most psychological disorders can be treated successfully. A lot of people don't believe that. There is talk therapy. There are many versions of talk therapy, which I'm going to mention very quickly here. There's also biomedical treatment, and that's drug therapy for a lot of these conditions. And there's even surgical remedies when everything else fails. So for example, there's ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, and that's basically shock therapy for people with severe depression who, by the way, can't be treated any other way. So they're not successful with any kind of medications or with talk therapy. So you need to know about substance abuse too, how we treat that, and terms used to discuss substance abuse. Addiction, by the way, is also considered a chronic disorder, and it's a type of psychological disorder. There are many types of talk therapy. So we have psychoanalysis, which was developed by Sigmund Freud. It tends to be very expensive and very, very time consuming. So you're supposed to meet with your psychotherapist 3 or 4 or 5 times a week over a period of 10 years, 20, 30 years. So you have to be very wealthy to do that and have lots of time. Almost nobody does that anymore, but it's the basis for a lot of what we do today, like humanistic therapy, which is also known as client-centered therapy. There is behavior therapy. It's used to treat phobias. So use the principles of learning that come with classical conditioning and operant conditioning. There's also cognitive therapy, which is very, very effective for many of these conditions. The premise is that people have distortions in the way they think. Sometimes it's called stinking thinking. And if you can just teach them how to think in more constructive ways, you will get rid of things like anxiety and depression. So make sure you read all that in your textbook. Certainly, if you have any questions, again, feel free to contact me by email. And that's it. You are on to Unit 8. And when you finish this, you are done with this class. Congratulations. I will see you maybe in some other class. Bye-bye.